Hello, I'm David Hunt. My guest today is an artist that I'm really enjoying his art at present. Chris Orr, hello.
Hello.
I studied art and design at Paran Institute and graphic design. He was a naughty boy at nightclubs in the 90s.
Oh my God, you've been doing your homework.
And has his own design company.
That's right.
Let's start off by talking about the first piece of art that somebody gave you, and it was a plastic doll's head.
How do you know that? That's very interesting, actually. It's true. Somebody, I think it was a 30th birthday or something, someone gave me a piece of, it was a doll's head. Actually, I think it was a whole doll, and they said, okay, I want to see what you can turn this into. Mm-hmm. I can't believe you know that, because I can't remember the person who gave it to me. This is probably nearly 30 years ago. So I took away that doll and that doll's head, and I scanned it into oblivion and ended up producing my first exhibition that was in Sydney of basically just the baby's mouth and the eyes, and very close up and colour rinsed and saturated. And it went off. It was great. And of course, then I didn't bother again doing anything for years. I thought, oh, that's good enough. I've had a go at being a fine artist and went back to being a commercial artist.
Let's talk about your journey. You're a Melbourne boy.
Yes, basically, my mum was a bit of a nomad. She's also, that's an Indigenous side of my family, Narungga, York Peninsula, South Australia, which I've only recently found out, which might explain my habits as a child. I was a serial runawayer from Homer. Hitchhiked across the Nullarbor Plain from Perth when I was a child.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's another whole show, I think. But mostly, look, I grew up, I did my primary school years, or my formative years, I think I would call it, in East Hawthorn. In Camberwell. We lived in a nice old rambling Victorian house there, and my favourite hobby was to actually get out in the streets and the gutters and with my pencils and draw the streetscapes.
That, as a kid, I think is fascinating.
No, it's odd.
No. It shows that obviously there's a real artist there, like in those early stages, and you didn't even realise, did you?
It was a hobby, and so I had a friend who. One of my mum's friends worked in a paper mill, so they gave me, this is how this happened, it was like a roll of paper that extended for kilometres, which meant that I could just go right down the street with a roll of paper. So the old ladies, back then in Camberwell, a bit bemused by my behaviour, and apart from the fact I also had a pug then, and no one had ever seen a pug before, so that used to peer out the box on my dragster bike.
Have you got any of those drawings?
No, my mum had them for years, I think, but you just don't think. You don't keep things like that. I wish I had. I remember my biggest conquer was trying to work out how to do the geometry of a dormer or an attic window on an Edwardian house. I mean, you get your Victorians, and when you start to get into an Edwardian house, the angles are completely crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember that's one of my sharpest memories, is trying to conquer the geometry of an attic window.
As a kid, that would be hard.
Yeah.
Now let's move on.
Especially when I was doing it with my foot. No, it's not true. Sorry.
That's not true. You're trying. That's another conversation.
That's another conversation.
So you were a student. I've got to talk about the Paran Institute, because so many wild and amazing stories have come out of that institute, didn't it?
So Paran was more. I did fine art and design. It was called art and design then. Now, before that, I actually went to Swinburne. This is back in the days when universities and colleges were free.
Yep.
The amount of courses I half finished and squandered breaks my heart when I consider what kids have to pay for now. Yeah. I used to hopscotch from one. I think I was a serial. I want to get into that course, and just get into it was worth it, and then I'd stuff around with it, Yeah.
So, but isn't that all part of growing up?
I suppose. Well, I'm waiting for that part to happen. Paran was pretty good. It was a lot looser than a lot of the other colleges creatively. It wasn't as uptight, and I loved it. And I remember that Polly Baldwin was in my year, second year I was there, and the teachers could see she was amazing photographer even back then, and she just had carte blanche with the dark room the whole time. I don't think I barely spoke to her when I was there, but I was off like a shot then, and I moved to another college. I went to Swinburne, and I think I started architecture at RMIT. Never completed any single course, but I think I probably did about 6 years in total of mixed courses.
You did concentrate on like what your like your little business is nowadays with like your design.
My graphic design was by default. So I went to the nightclub like any good homosexual man does for 10 years, and got frustrated with a lot of the branding and the look of nightclubs and stuff. And a lot of promoters there knew I had a bit of a creative bent, and they said, well, you don't like it, you fix it for us. And so that became a real big thriving business for me. Basically at one stage I had the branding of every second nightclub in Melbourne, but none of them knew that I was working for them. So that was a lot of drink cards and a lot of owed money, guys. But look, it gave me it bought me a house. It did all those things, you know, and I'm at the stage now where I'm resenting of that level of commercial art. I mean, I work for other businesses, promoting, looking after other business and branding, you know, small corporate, small business, whatever I could manage, because I'm essentially a business of two, maybe sometimes three people.
Yep.
So,
you as an artist, an exhibition has just finished now that has been very successful for you, and it's a bit of a commercial twist to it, which, you know, like that's obvious with you know, like your design stuff, but where did the idea come from? Because, you know, like you've used a classical piece of design, and then you've mixed it with pop culture.
well, it's essentially correct. I mean, I love a bit of juxtaposition. Who doesn't? But I've had this, like, I love old antique engravings. You know, I love the skill. That's a skill I could never manage in a lifetime. So, of course, I'm borrowing that, and I absolutely acknowledge the engraving and the artists that I'm using, but I also mix it up. So I've been using torn up Coke cans, lemonade cans, everything that's to do with my commercial side, almost destroying what I do for a career as a commercial artist and reinventing that. I underlay those I put them under the engraving, almost a form of, I hate to say it, decoupage. And overlay the engraving over the top, the foils, and that give me a luminosity. It's almost like painting with a broad brush stroke, but using cans and refraction instead of a brush.
Yep.
The other one, which is a bit nuttier, is I've used I pulled apart a motherboard on a computer, and what the naked eye can't see in a motherboard is astonishing. Like the cartographic values and
so you blow it up.
Oh, but these are scanned at 3000 DPI, which the computer doesn't want to do it. There's almost smoke coming out the back.
but it looks like when you look at it, and so there's the Madonna and child in the you know, like that's your subject matter, with this, you know, the computer bits that you're blowing up, and it almost looks like a Persian rug or a fabric or something like that you've just laid over the top of it.
That's right.
But it's the inside of a computer.
It's literally about 4 square centimetres of a motherboard that I've continually chopped up on the computer, recoloured on the computer. It's tiled and mirrored, and it is an endless pattern, almost fractal, but in a tribal-looking way. It's hypnotic to play with. It's astonishing. Yeah.
And then with the overlay of a can of a soft drink.
That's right. That's on the other. So there's essentially two series in this one exhibition.
Where did the idea come from? You know, like the motherboard. What made you think that way? The artist's mind.
A brick. It has a redeeming quality. I mean, I'm constantly looking at objects and thinking the possibilities of this object that hasn't been, you know, and what it could be utilised for. So, looking at a motherboard, I had an old broken phone in my drawer for years, and I remember having a close look at that, and I couldn't see I couldn't see how amazing the details were until I got I've forgotten the name. It's like a magnifying glass, but it's one that cartographers use, and I put that on top of it and had a close look, and I was like, whoa! So I realised that there was something in that. I could see it straight away. You know, the same as foils and cans and rubbish. I mean, the last show, it was only the tip of the iceberg of what I actually put in the show. So there's a whole lot of other detritus still lying around.
But also what you did, apart from the incredible art that you produced, the framing was quite interesting, your plastic framing.
Yes, acrylic fluorescent boxes. has again come from a childhood thing, and looking at the plastic dividers that used to be in the butcher's shop that would divide the meat tray and the meat on the plastic glass, and they used to have that fluorescent pink and the fluorescent green acrylic box, and I've always been fascinated by that, the fluorescent acrylics. And my framer was like, oh, I'm not sure about this, but we found a manufacturer who could actually make these boxes, and they are integral. They're actually part of the artwork. That the frame is part of the artwork.
Yeah.
It is the one object. You know, the framing is not decorating the artwork. It is the artwork.
Now, the exhibition did extremely well.
No, I'm
rapt. And as most artists, you've said to me that if you break even, that's a plus.
Yeah.
But you've actually made money on this exhibition. What does that do for you, Chris, as an artist?
Validation, confidence. Because an artist is like a comedian with sad clowns, self-deprecating.
It's such a personal journey a lot of the time, isn't
it? It is, and I put the blinkers. What I didn't do this show, I did not look at one other exhibition for 7 months.
Oh, okay.
I kept the blinkers on because I know that can steer you and also can bring in a level of doubt to what you're doing. So it was a bit horrifying to be locked away and not see any art during that period. I'm not a big Instagram person on art, but I've had to be because of this show. But keeping the blinkers on kept me very focused. I forgot what the question was.
What does it mean?
What does it mean? So what it means is what I will be putting into what I pulled out of this show, money-wise, will go straight back into what I produce next, because this means I can produce bigger and better things, and I'm excited by the possibilities.
And have you got an idea of what's coming next? You don't need to tell us. You do know.
I thought, that's it, it's over, I've got nothing. 2 days ago, I thought, oh, bing, here we go. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Now, you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
What's your partner's name?
Paul Clifton. Many of you know him. He's sort of quite often referred to as the Mayor of Gaytown.
Right.
He's been on every board in Melbourne. He was on Queer Film for years. We were both on the Midsummer board for years. He's long suffering.
Right. It must be hard living with an artist, but you actually put yourself down a lot. You always say that this, that, and the other. I've only found you as a nice person.
No, that's not true. But we're on.
So do you argue a bit?
No. He watches me. I torture myself and I torture him, but he's, well, that's nice, dear. That's lovely. I'm on the floor in a fetal position. I'm a failure. I can't do it. You'll be right. Tea's ready. But he knows who I am, and he knows that we rarely fight about anything. So we're both very political, and we get fired up about that. But we're living in an echo chamber, so that doesn't really it doesn't. Sort of,
well, exactly. Your
we're
bubble, your bubble that you're in.
Yeah.
Chris Orr, thank you so much for chatting with us today, and I can't wait to see your next exhibition.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it, and thanks for coming in to see the artwork.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm David Hunt, and you'll see me soon.